when you have abundance of support, it does create a lot of pressure. You don't have to be the number one in class, and you don't have to get the best grades, and you didn't have to do all of that to be really successful in life. Most successful people you see, at some point in their life, they have taken the risks and they have put the fear of failure aside to do something exceptional. The gap between exceptional success and the failure is that one last try that you didn't make. Eternal happiness is what I'm after.
Yeah.
I don't know what the end is, but I know I'm in the most happiest state of my life.
Yeah.
Never chase the revenue.
Yeah.
Chase the outcomes and the revenue will follow. I don't like the fact when people are celebrating raising big rounds without having substance in their product. Revenue growth and cash flow positiveness, if you don't have a view to it, then there's something fundamentally wrong. When you have to put 40 plus people on a project for 9 months without getting paid, that's a very risky bet. One thing, you go and ask any Intuitive employee and say, hey, what is one thing you like about Intuitive? And 100% of the people would say security, the job security and the future at Intuitive is what we love about. In the life of Intuitive, we've not done single layoff.
Right.
People with strong character are the good people, and people with the weak character are the bad people.
I love that. I mean, this is the kind of sound bites we need more entrepreneurs to listen to in their company building journeys. Jay, welcome to the Desi podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good to meet you.
In the lead up to this conversation, I was doing a little bit of research, and what really fascinates me the most is how founders from business backgrounds, like family backgrounds that are delved largely into businesses, enter the tech industry and really take that by storm. And your story is somewhat similar as well. So hailing from a Gujarati family, which is obviously very well known for being successful businessmen for centuries now, how has that played a huge impact in your journey as an entrepreneur?
So it's an interesting question. Actually, first time somebody has asked me this question after so many conversations. But it's the way the family supports you, right? So taking risks, failing, or trying one more time, thinking outside of the box, charting unknown territories. We don't really talk a lot of fancy terms, but it follows the same thought process that nothing ventured, nothing gained. So getting that freedom and belief by your family in you that whatever you will do, you'll be successful, and if not, we are here. I think that's quite a big support. Sometimes people don't say it, but it is understood. So it's a back of your mind. You always have that. The second part of that is we all are grown in a way where it's about doing greater good. It's about providing the best for your family, providing the best for your community, your friends, doing philanthropy, charity, helping others. That just has ingrained in us. So one of the fundamental things is that, okay, how are you going to exercise power of giving is to have so much, right, for you to be able to give. So kind of two ways, right? Taking risk is not looked down upon, and then you want to work for something greater good, something big. So those two aspects, I think, help us get into call it venture world, right? Anything we do is really a venture. And interestingly, most people get confused by business versus job. Venturing is same, be it you start your own business, or you are part of a business, or you're actually an employee, right? End of the day, it is about how much stretch that you are going through, and how much risk you are taking to get to the next level, to create a greater impact, right? End of the day, outcomes is what matters. So everybody is linearly focused on the outcomes to create better life, being able to give back to the society and community. I think those are some of the ingrained fundamentals that we generally start with, especially from the community I come from.
I love that. And of course, not hailing from any business background, I find that fascinating. I can't relate to it, unfortunately, but I I've grown up looking at my friends who are from business backgrounds, and I've always aspired, to have that sort of like an ecosystem around me where you're constantly being pushed to experiment. You're being encouraged to take that risk, because that risk appetite is so important in any journey, be it an entrepreneur, which is obviously very important, but even as you venture out into the professional world, be it a job, be it something else, even as an employee, to take a bet and work at an early stage startup, you require a lot of risk to do that. You're taking a pay cut sometimes. You never know if the company is going to be around in a couple of years. There's a lot of stigma associated with it.
True.
So growing up, as we're talking about maybe teenage years at this point of time, or even early 20s, would you say, or how did you view that risk-taking ability and the support ecosystem around you that kind of said, hey, you can go and do anything that you want to, and we'll be there to give you that support. But also at the same time, it comes with a lot of pressure when you have that level of luxury and freedom to do what you want to do. Maybe you're like, okay, but what happens if things go wrong? Did that ever cross your mind when you were trying to do something on your own?
Yeah, it actually, it is very true. When you have abundance of support, it does create a lot of pressure, especially having successful parents and the family around you.
Yeah.
You are expected to perform at certain level. Fortunately, in my case, was not really, that expectation. Again, I was an average student, and my view to life was live your life by the day. And explore and figure out. Never pretended to be the smartest guy in the room. So I didn't have so much of pressure. But the fact that the belief that when you look into the eyes of your parents and your family, and then everybody has that pride and that spark and say, hey, you know what, this guy is going to do something big one day. He just hails that. He has that something about him says that he's going to do amazing. That belief is super powerful. It actually didn't become burden. Matter of fact, it let me feel along the way to say, you know what, you don't have to be the number one in class, and you don't have to get the best grades, and you didn't have to do all of that to be really successful in life, right? And again, it's not, I don't mean to say that you don't have to be number one. You should, if you can, but it's not the requirement. And so not having fear of failure kind of counters that pressure that you have to be successful.
Right.
It's like you have to manage it very carefully. Some people can deal with that pressure, some cannot. But end of the day, it's the life, right? The most successful people you see at some point in their life, right, they have taken the risks and they have put the fear of failure aside to do something exceptional, right? And I repeatedly say this to all the people that I talk to or mentor or support or guide, is that the gap between exceptional success and the failure is that one last try that you didn't make.
I agree.
Right? That's it. That is really what it is. Every single time.
Yeah.
And you have to listen to your gut, your heart. You have, if you're very pure soul, clear intents, good intents, and you want to do something to change the world and, make good impact to everybody's life around you, you will naturally start hearing your own, good gut feel to say, hey, this is the direction you want to go or not. But end of the day, coming back to your question, having abundance of belief and faith in your ability to be successful is a pressure, but you can counter that by saying, hey, you know what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
If I lose, I'm going to learn. Right. So I think that's the way to do it. And that has really helped me.
It's all about having that right mindset, even in terms of having the support, the freedom, the luxury, the inner voice that keeps telling you that, hey, maybe it's a risky bet, but it's that want and pursuit of, I think there might be something at the end of this tunnel. And that hope kind of like is a great way to like drive what you want to do.
Yeah. So I'll give you another best example on this. And I tell this to everybody. The moment you start measuring your success to something or somebody, it's going to be very hard.
Right.
The moment you say, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to give everything I have, you may end up becoming that very successful person that everybody talks about. But if you say, I want to be as successful as so and so, then you are creating undue pressure on yourself and setting the timeline, and you're time boxing yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get to that level in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, you're going to start, be overcritical about yourself, and you start beating yourself up. So focus on yourself and what you want to deliver and drive. I think success will follow.
That happens with a lot of founders, especially in markets like the Bay Area, where you're seeing your neighbor doing constantly better than you, or somebody else pops up the very next day whose numbers are better, whose funding numbers are probably higher, whose company size is bigger, who are probably scaling at a faster rate than you are. And that game of rat race where you're constantly looking over your shoulder makes you feel so insecure, no matter what it is. I was having a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and she asked me this question as to, at what point do you think that founders get happy with the outcome? We were just talking about like exits of companies. And I said, it really depends on what is their motivation. Yeah. Like if you're playing the numbers game, then I don't think any number ever is going to satiate you.
No.
Because the moment you say, I'm going to want to be $100 million founder, then you start being in rooms where you're the poorest member now.
Yeah.
Because the room that you were in, probably $100 million, you were rich, but now you've outgrown that room. You move into a room where that billion founders worth billions of dollars.
Yes.
Now you enter that room, you'll have founders worth 10 billions of dollars or maybe more. Yeah. And then so on and so forth. That number keeps going up. So if you are just chasing numbers at the end of the day, whatever it is, you're somewhat at some point going to start questioning yourself, and that probably is not going to drive you as much. In some cases, sure, numbers will drive you, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make you happy. But you really need to find, as you and I were discussing before the recording, it's purpose, it's intent. It's what are you doing, what you're doing. And we'll come to this in a little bit of a moment, but you talked about how your company building journey and your investment journey kind of is basically a way of you merging things with the intent of supporting things that kind of align to who you are and the outcomes that you want. And I think that's very important, where a lot of people just get caught up with the noise that's around them. And that voice and noise can be very drowning at times. And that's where people get into these rabbit holes of, competition and not really coming out of those holes. And if competition is used in the right way, you can obviously fuel your growth in multiple directions.
So I'll give you a different perspective there. So I meet with so many founders, right? I've been investing in startups in our space for last almost 8-9 years now. And we've had number of successful exits. We have number of unicorns in the current portfolio. Few of the founders you also know that we have backed. One thing that Silicon Valley or Bay Area should teach the world is the humility.
Yeah.
Because literally an engineer working for you today, and you could be an average successful startup exiting, sometimes fire sale exit, or sometimes average exit, sometimes okay exit, and that one kid in your team who you didn't think so highly of turns out becomes a multi-billion-dollar startup founder. And I mean, just yesterday I saw one startup raising a significant amount of money at over 10 billion valuation, and literally I've heard somebody saying, this guy is just an average, and turns out he is doing something amazing. I think we have to look beyond the numbers. This game is not going to stop, right? The venture business has been going on for ages, for centuries, right? Different form and different structure and contracts are there, but you really have to go after what you truly believe in and what keeps you happy and makes you feel that you are on the journey of accomplishing a greater happiness. If you just stay focused to it, if not this venture, the next one and the next one and the next one, right? Yeah. There are plenty of stories where somebody started a business after 65 and they're multi-billion-dollar. They were bankrupt. So don't time box your success, right? Don't time box by this age I have to be here and that. Those are all nonsensical concepts, right? Yeah. Because some of it is marketing propaganda. People like to celebrate the successes too much, where it's like, okay, I've been there, done that, now what next, right? Matter of fact, somewhere I heard, there was one of the episodes I was watching, and somebody says, hey, after becoming super successful, the journey is super lonely. Mm-hmm. right? Like I have few $1 billion in a bank account, but I actually don't know what's
What
the
to do with
purpose
it,
of my life.
Yeah.
Why that happens is because you actually did not look anything beyond just the numbers, right?
Yeah.
For my case, right, I've had plenty of opportunities to exit and sell Intuitive, right, and could easily, comfortably retire and be walking around investing money in Silicon Valley and live my life and have fun. And I didn't do it. And next thing is 2 years later, our valuation is 5x more. And 4 years later, today we are at 12, 13x of what valuation we were offered, and it would have been a very comfortable number too,
Yeah.
right? We are 100% debt free, cash flow positive company, bootstrapped, right? There is no drama or shenanigans of any investors and banks and debts and complex cap tables. But we decided to say, hey, as a team, leadership team, we got together. We said, do we want to continue this journey, and do we believe that it's going to be a fun ride to take it to the next level for next 5 years? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And nobody stops. We all do whatever best we can, 18 hours a day, Monday through Sunday. While we are not working, we are working.
That's right.
Right? And we're loving it. We don't put ourselves against like, hey, if I had done this, I would have made X. That's literally saying, hey, if I had won a jackpot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So whatever you are offered and you're provided and the opportunity you have at hand, as long as you're loving the journey, go all in. Right?
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself with other people's number, because end of the day, your outcome is what's destined for you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this is the kind of sound bites we need more entrepreneurs to listen to in their company building journeys. Now, that's a good way for us to actually talk about how Intuitive came about. You've had a very interesting journey. You've sold a business before starting Intuitive. So let's talk about that. How does a teenage Jay look at his career going forward? Like, what happens? What's the next steps? How does a consulting business come about? How do you sell that business, and how do you start Intuitive? Let's talk about that journey and how that arc played out for you.
Yeah. So I actually never planned anything per se that I'll do this, I'll sell, I'll exit, I'll do X, Y, and Z. The goal was very clear that I have to create something that becomes my story. It should not be that, hey, I've gotten something from somebody and I carried it forward. I wanted to build something from scratch, something that my family, my parents, my kids are proud of, right? At the same time, I tell my kids that you have to build your own story, right? Don't count on anything that you are going to be given, right? So that was first objective. The second objective was that wanted to create something that's unconventional of what the family has been doing for generations.
And what's
right?
the family been doing?
So they've been in different businesses, textile and oil and, construction, real estate. So wanted to do something unconventional. I mean, if I tell you
Why was that though? What prompted you to tell yourself that I don't want to do this, I want to do something totally different?
Just to create my own story. The whole idea was that, hey, if I just stay in the same business, then I've seen it. There's nothing exciting for me.
That's the convenient choice.
Yes, that's a convenient choice. Plus, fortunately, I started very early on. When I started my business, my father was 41 years old.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, you have long runway before you have to, find somebody to manage other things. But again, the idea was really to build your own story, create your own success path. Second part was always the macro goal was I want to do something big and amazing for everybody around me. Everybody around me should be happy, successful, financially, mentally, physically healthy, and in good spirits.
And these are your company stakeholders, or you're talking about friends, family?
Every single person. I have very simple rule that if you don't, so, the term you've heard, right? You are a byproduct of 10 people you surround yourself with.
That's right.
Right? Your happiness is also a byproduct of 10 people surround yourself with, who generally are your family and extended family and friends. If they are not in a good spirits, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
So the idea is that lift up everybody with you, right? And part 3 of that was that, hey, let's create a story that becomes naturally, organically inspirational for rest of the family. That this kid who was, average, above average, came to US, built everything on his own, did not know one person in the country, and got to here, we can also do it. And we can do it better, right? My goal is that they do 10, 20, 30 times better than me. I tell this to my kids. I'm like, I've not even scratched the surface. You guys could do, 100 times better than me. So that was the goal. And then the purpose and intent. I have always found myself that there is something that I'm going to be able to do that's going to be superior and greater than everybody else, right? I don't know what that is, but I've been constantly working on it, and I've been, delivering on that promise that I made to myself, right? Without having an end goal.
Yeah.
That how in what fashion I can influence people's life in really positive way, right? So those are the three things that really made me feel like, entrepreneurship is the only way. You kind of have to have you have to have an ability to create abundance of resources,
Right.
and then with those resources you could give back and deliver so many things that you aspire to. I've never been driven by the fancy house, fancy car, and stuff. Like, those are easy things. They can be achieved pretty quickly. Your
Sure.
checkbox items, then done. Your family's happy. But then what's next? And that's the quest I'm on. I generally say eternal happiness is what I'm after.
Yeah.
I don't know what the end is, but I know I'm in the most happiest state of my life.
Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of what drove entrepreneurship
Right.
journey to begin with.
And how did you identify, maybe starting out would be, you start out with a consultancy firm, and then how does Intuitive come into place? Like, how did you identify that this is where you're going to start?
So the first part of my career, when I built the consulting practice, it was purely a series of consequences. One thing led to another to another. Did not know how corporate American business works. Did not know the terms MSAs and SOWs and how to go and approach customer. The only one fire in the belly was like, hey, I'm the best you could get. Tell me what your problem is and I'll solve it by hook or crook.
Right.
Right? And that attitude helped impress number of people who gave me an opportunity. One thing led to another, built a nice business.
What kind of consulting firm was this?
It was IT services consulting, purely network security, data center services work that we did. Nothing fancy, nothing sexy,
Yeah.
but it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right?
As most boring businesses do.
Yeah. And then it got to a point where we realized, like, hey, what is the next big thing in this? And we didn't really find something to jump out and say, okay, you know what? The next logical step would be go to step A, B, C, D, E. So we said, let's figure something out. Let's step back, slow down. Let's look at what is that we are after building, right? What is the purpose? What is the goal?
Yeah.
What are the limiting factors? Like, why we could not go from 0 to 2 to 5 to 10 million and then to 100 million in one single line? And the answer is, like most things in life, that's not how it works. You kind of have to do a great reset. So that great reset was the time when I started Intuitive.Cloud with a very clear thought process to say, we want to do infrastructure services for global enterprises, right? And very focused business, very committed to the goals that we set out for ourselves, and no looking back. Grew that. Again, we got to a certain point and we said, okay, let's step back and see if we are really in the right direction and we are achieving the goals that we set out for when we started in
Right.
2012. And we realized that, hey, there are gaps that we need to fulfill. And very interestingly, one of the things that I've learned early on in my life is never wear a fake pride on your shoulders, right? Never pretend to be someone who you are not. Never pretend to have a lot more money when you don't have it. Never pretend to show the success that you don't have, right? Be very real. The world is an amazing place where real people knows and understands the real people. So I've done this thing where I do candid conversations. Every single customer of mine, I have candid conversation with. I try not to meet with them in their office. I meet them outside over a coffee, drink, or a lunch or dinner. Very, guards off conversation. And then that's when you really hear the candid feedback. Hey, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can I do better? What do you see me doing in next 5 years? Most people don't ask that question. They talk about what they are going to do.
Yeah.
And they don't tend to listen to what the world sees them as. Right? So 5 years back, I heard from one of the top CIOs that, Jay, what you're trying to do is too many things, and you sound like you are a big five management consulting company, but you are 80 people company. You have 30 offerings, and this is not going to scale well. You really need to figure out how me as a customer want to work with you, and why would I want to give business to you? He's like, unfortunately, I don't know the answer of it, because if I had known the answer, then I would be in the business with you. But I'm your customer, and I'm telling you that figure out what is one thing that's going to make me open the door and say, despite of all these large companies that are there standing outside of my door, Jay and Intuitive, come on in, I want to give you this opportunity. So that was a sort of, a day in our lives where we felt like, okay, you know what, it's time to rediscover ourselves. Then we figured out and we said, look, innovation is the way to go. We need to create some unique value, automation, acceleration for our customers that normal GSIs, SIs, and consulting services don't tend to do because of their size and scale. We are small, we are nimble, we are agile. Let's lead with innovation, followed by automation, and then leverage our engineering prowess that we have, combine it all three together, and give a unique value to the customer. So that was just the thesis. Came to Bay Area, met so many founders, met a lot of early stage VCs, and understood the whole innovation spectrum. And that really clicked. And without thinking too much, we jumped into it. We said, look, these are the three things we do. We do cloud, we do data and AI, and we do cybersecurity.
Right.
Let's look at the top innovation in each of these three spaces. Let's invest in them. Let's understand the products and solutions. Put Intuitive's secret sauce around it, the engineering muscle around it, and let's bring these ideas to our customers. That's how it started.
Yeah.
What it ended up doing was mind-blowing, because now it's no longer, when I'm calling the customers, it's no longer about, hey, what more I can do and which next deal I can send a proposal for. And, it's no longer that conversation. With founders, it worked really well, because while they are incubating an idea or they are building a product, they needed an early validation of the product, so product market fit validation. They now got access to the A+ category customers or the Fortune 500 customers. These customers also, the IT landscape changed. The CIOs, CTOs, and CISOs made it to the boards of large enterprises in 16, 17, 18, 19, and 2020, right? That's when the whole change, that IT is key component part of the business, or business is enabled by IT, right? So it worked. It was a perfect timing. It worked well. The technology leaders loved the idea that they get to see the innovation while it's being made 3-4 years in advance, and that would give them a solid competitive advantage. So for Intuitive, we got best of both worlds. We got our hands in innovation, worked very closely with founders, kept it very real, worked with CXOs, elevated their thought process, their mindset, push them to consider innovation as an accelerator.
Right.
Instead of saying, hey, I'm rolling a dice. No, you're not rolling a dice. You're rolling a dice on kind of yourself, right, and your journey by supporting the startups and innovation. And today, if you see, you see this major conferences, right? Now the big CEOs of major financial services and healthcare and insurance and manufacturing are coming on stage talking about innovation, right? So Intuitive became that glue between enterprises and innovation, layered with our own engineering muscle that we have.
Yeah.
And what we build is called delivery-led sales. So our execution and the ideas from ideation to execution in a very seamless automated fashion is what really made us relevant. And that's what took us from, grew us in 4 years 11x.
Right.
So 2019 to 2024, the journey was astounding. Even we were surprised with the way we have grown. And now we've done another great reset to say, hey, now we need to change ourselves to become a business consulting company.
Yeah.
Right? So leverage data and AI, making sure all the security governance are in place. But how do we deliver the tangible, measurable business outcomes?
Yeah.
So now we are turning Intuitive from a technology solutions and services company to a business consulting and business solutions company, right?
Okay.
So it's basically leveraging the intelligence of data, AI, and the customer's own assets.
Yeah.
How do we transform their business? How do we put number on their balance sheet? How do we create a unique value for them? And so this whole cycle of learning and listening from your customers, right? That gave us a good view into where we needed to focus our energies. And then most important thing, which goes to every founder that I meet, is drive focus, right?
Yeah.
Focus, focus, focus. That is the only one thing that is going to get you to the finish line.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, if you get distracted and you go in 10 different directions, never chase the revenue.
Yeah.
Chase the outcomes and the revenue will follow. And that's been the sort of the guiding principle for Intuitive. And every single leader at Intuitive today follows that. We actually tell ourselves every time, like, hey, are we focused? Are we in our swim lanes? Are we excelling? Are we accelerating?
Yeah.
And if answer is no, let's pivot. If answer is yes, let's go at full force, double the force. And that's how we do it.
Perfect. So there are a lot of things in that answer that we can break down.
Yeah.
And to me, I think what's really relevant is let's talk about two questions which are top of mind for me. The first one, which we touched upon briefly at the start of the episode as well, is you talked about how the company is bootstrapped, and that was a conscious choice that you made. I want to delve a little bit more into that particular point as to why you chose to be a bootstrap company, and not just at the early stages, but throughout the life cycle of the company, because capital is one of those things that a lot of people in the early days look at it as a vanity metric because they're like, oh, I raised X amount of dollars as funding. But it's not about just a vanity metric. It's actually, it's a fuel that gets you from point A to point B. And for that business, point A and B can be defined in different ways. So, but you chose to be bootstrapped, and you probably at that point of time, or never at the point of time at Intuitive, looked at capital externally as a driver for the company, perhaps for different reasons. You had enough that was self-sufficient and you were able to put that behind the business motion. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because a lot of the listeners are probably even curious about how do you run an IT services company bootstrapped, and then we'll talk about some of the customer acquisitions and stuff, because I think that's also going to be an interesting conversation. Yes. Let's start with the bootstrap story.
So one of the favorite, so two things that I have heard from my family is cash is a position, right? Most people think
is
cash.
Is it a position or
it's no, it's a position.
Position.
Cash is a position, right? It's like you have stock and your gold and your real estate. You take position in different instruments.
Right.
Cash is one of the instruments.
Right.
Okay. Second is, there are times in business that you will be on the cusp of making right or wrong decision. And more often than not, people making wrong decisions are the ones who are strapped with the burden of debt or investors' pressures or the timeline, right? For you to make a lot of sound decisions, right, you need to be in a very comfortable state of mind. So for me, that was critical to say, look, I don't need to live very fancy life. And even today, We live very normal, down to earth lifestyle, right? Every single penny is made is reinvested in the business, and that goes to most Gujarati business. Again, this is going back to the roots, right? Owing somebody some money like a debt is not very comfortable feeling. Right or wrong, I don't know, but that's how I've lived my life. And I'm not saying that you should only bootstrap and you should not raise the capital. Raising capital at the right time is what's most important. Coming back to my story, I never wanted to owe anything to anybody and wanted to be in a position and a power to say, hey, if I want to make a bet on something that I truly believe in, I shouldn't have to look right or left and be able to make that decision. And that has to be a bold decision. So that was the reason why I stayed away from debt instruments and the equity instruments, right? Second part for me was that in the business I was in, I could manage not having to infuse a lot of capital early on. We are now at a stage and the size of the company and the level of the company that the debt and equity will play a very critical role to us becoming 10x, 20x, 30x of a business, right? It is not a time now that we continue to grow organic. We have to do organic and inorganic, both, right? Founders celebrating raising big rounds, that means you are giving too much away too early. Now, again, you have to time the macroeconomic, microeconomic circumstances and stuff. So again, it's a very deeper topic that I can talk all day for. But I don't like the fact when people are celebrating raising big rounds without having substance in their product and the roadmap on how are they going to become, cash flow positive. There's always this bad times in the industry that comes in where VCs and investors are pushing like, hey, growth at, revenue at any cost, and they're paying $5 for $1 of revenue, right? And then you'll always see that 3 years later, all those companies go in trouble, right? We've seen enough cases around it. So a strong founder or an entrepreneur is one who is leveraging the instruments available only as much as it is required and not abusing those instruments with that eye on the ball, which is revenue and profitability.
Right.
Revenue growth and cash flow positiveness, if you don't have a view to it, then there's something fundamentally wrong.
Right.
Now, I can choose and say, okay, I'm becoming cash flow positive, but now let me infuse more capital and then blow this out 5x, 10x. Yes, but end of the day, you have to be able to say, if the worst moment comes in, the market hits a roadblock or something worse were to happen, this is a product, a solution, and a business that is self-sustaining. If you don't get that answer when you ask yourself as a founder, that means something is wrong.
Yeah.
At that point, you are running a borderline Ponzi scheme because you're saying, hey, I'm going to go with this and hopefully it works, right? You are not, you don't have any downside protection for your business, right? So that's my fundamental view. Now, if you look at every successful founder, right, they all have a similar journey, right? And this playbook is repeatable and it is known. But then sometimes people do get carried away, and then especially for first-time entrepreneurs, right? So a lot of your decisions are also a byproduct of who you are surrounding yourself with. You're surrounding yourself with VCs and the advisors who don't understand, who are not the operators, who never build the business on their own. You might as well, go to a casino and then just play with them and make money, right? One of the things that I always tell every founder that I've invested in the companies with is, do not hire or do not onboard an advisor to your team without consequence. Bring an advisor who is a practitioner. Bring an advisor who has been an operator. Bring an advisor who has built and sold the company. Bring an advisor who has actually failed. You don't have to bring the most successful advisor, right?
Yeah.
You want to bring somebody, you want to learn from their experiences. Like for my journey, there are enough people around me, their failures are a big driver for me to say, hey, these are the places that I have to be careful of, right? So be the founder. Don't use be the founder who understands the value of revenue, profitability, and cash flow positiveness, and being able to build a business that will sustain any bad weather.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then the outcome is inevitable, which is going to be a bad outcome,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I wanted always to be in that comfortable situation to say, if I want to make a bold decision to, hire somebody really big, or to, start a new business unit or go after a new vertical, and I have to make an investment, I should be able to make it. I don't have to go look right or left. One thing that worked out for us, which is very unconventional, again, most corporates don't do it, but we, as a fast-growing boutique, nimble company, we did it where we did things at risk. We did things for customers without a signed piece of paper, without a purchase order. And why we could do that is because we were cash flow positive. We were always sitting on a reserve. We could infuse the capital, our own capital, without having to get the bank approvals or investor approvals to do those projects. And some of those projects have actually become the springboard for us.
Could you give one or two examples?
So one example was, there was this customer, major payments company. They wanted to migrate from on-prem to AWS cloud. And we were brought in last minute. They loved what we had to present and pitch. And then something came up and like, well, without this contract paperwork in place, and this whole purchase order process, requisition process is about 3.5, 4 months long, and we'll miss the window to go live. So my business partner and I, we had a 3-minute conversation, and I said, hey, let's roll the dice. The sponsors are right, customers committed, we have it in writing that we are willing to do work at risk, and they've accepted and agreed. Yes, there is a risk, but not so much. What is the worst case scenario? We will get paid 9 months from now, right? When you have to put 40 plus people on a project for 9 months without getting paid, that's a very risky bet.
Right.
You can only do those things when you really have all the wherewithals. So being bootstrapped, being cash flow positive, debt-free company helped us in that strong decision. That one project in 2021 has resulted in about 27 other projects and the whole new business line for us that is resulting in $30+ million a year for us today.
Right.
Right? So that's an example of being the position self-sufficient. Now, on the flip side, growth comes in very different forms and ways, right? So depending on which industry you are in, depending on what type of work you are doing, you do have to leverage those instruments. So, and we ourselves are looking at it. We remain to be cash flow positive, and we have enough funds to be able to go acquire a company or two. But the speed at which we want to now grow and take Intuitive to the next level, we are going to explore both organic and inorganic route. But again, the start has been fantastic, and that has put us in a very comfortable position today.
I love that. I love how you have thought about bootstrappiness, not from a point of view of it's less about wanting to like just use capital in an efficient manner, but also using and being or constructing the company in a way and a manner that you're self-sufficient enough to sustain and grow the business. It's not just about, hey, I've got 10 people and make sure that I can feed them for like this month. Yeah. It's about saying, hey, what if I get projects on board where I need to onboard, let's say 40 more people.
Yeah.
And can I support those 40 more people without raising external capital and taking on these bigger projects and then bring those projects to life and support the team? That kind of is a very long-term thinking of in terms of how do you build teams, because you're not just building businesses and supporting businesses, You're actually building your internal teams by thinking that, hey, this is how I need to position myself from
so one thing you go and ask any Intuitive employee and say, hey, what is one thing you like about Intuitive? And 100% of the people would say the security, the job security and the future at Intuitive is what we love about. Why? 3 times this happened. 2016, major correction happened. things slow down, we retained and sustained the entire team. In the life of Intuitive, we've not done single layoff
Right.
till date.
That's
right?
amazing.
And yes, there has been bad situations have come up. COVID came, we addressed to the entire team and their families to say, look, one thing that you don't need to worry about is your job security. We have enough money sitting in a bank account. I actually showed the bank account balance to the team, which no founders generally would do that, to say, look, you are not working for just fly-by-night company. We are very responsible. We know what we are doing. We know we have built enough reserves and we've created a business in a way that it's self-sustaining, where we will weather this storm. Only thing I asked my team was, hey, nobody's going to lose the job. Nobody's going to lose their bonus. Nobody's going to have to deal with the half the salary. But now, till we get into the green, we have to make sure that we do not leave one stone unturned.
Right.
We work double as hard that we are doing today. We cannot afford to lose $1 of revenue. Mistakes have no rooms, right? Intuitive is going to come out as the best company that enterprises have worked with, and the results are in front of you. We are literally 11 times the revenue since 2020 February or March when the COVID was announced till today. And that only happened because of the way we conducted our business. That sense of security and the commitment that came from us was the driver for every single one of our employees to give all they had, right? It also created a very different emotion in the team to say, look, if the founders of the company are that responsible and they care so much about it, I'll tell you that I had a recruiter who makes very minimal base salary and makes a lot of commission, right, on the hiring that she does for us. She came and offered, like, you know what, Jay, well, my salary is not going to make much difference in the large scheme of things, but I want to give 50% of my salary until we get into the green, because it's my way of showing to appreciate the efforts that you and India are putting in. To me, that is a best winning formula, right? If I have to, if even today, 5 years later, I'm cherishing that moment, right? And I'm telling you this. So that's a fundamentally strong business, in my view, right? We have people like, Jay, what's the big deal? You know, if needed, we all will roll up the sleeves, we'll get things done. Just hearing that, we never have to do that. Hearing that alone is the fact that we build a strong and solid business with a core foundation that's, built on true substance and not just the marketing and the gimmicks and, investors' money and the, monopoly money.
Yeah.
It is real business built to sustain, survive, and thrive in the worst possible scenarios.
Would you say that the people, to an extent culture, is perhaps the most important aspect of an IT services business? And if not, what would you allude the success of Intuitive to be thus far?
So yes, culture and values are in a macro level. They're everybody talks about it. How many practices is questionable thing. It's more about character, right? So the culture and values, the values that you provide, the culture is what you build. None of the two are going to work if you are not building the team with people with strong character, or the people who you are helping build the strong character, right? See, end of the day, what is good people versus bad people, right? People with strong character are the good people, and people with the weak character are the bad people. People with strong character are going to do only the good things, right? They're going to be kind, they're going to be gentle, they're going to show humility, they're going to be supportive, they're going to help others, they're going to lift others, they're going to do right thing by the company and by other employees, they're going to do right thing by their families. So a good, strong character, good people, good culture, and then that becomes the values of your company, right? That's a cycle.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but then can you nurture character, or are you identifying people who already have that innate character and bringing them into the company? What do you think? what people are born with, or is it something that your company, as a result of the environment that they work with, can bring people to that level?
So some of the things you can change. People are born with certain characteristics. Some of them, it's like that. The story about frog and the scorpion. You may have heard. A scorpion's always going to be scorpion. It's not going to change its own character and behavior. But normally, the good people can be turned and nurtured into great people. An average character person can be turned into a good character person by experiences and examples, right? We lead by example. That's how I wake up every day. That's how my leadership team wakes up every day. And we go to bed with the sense of accomplishment that we've done our part. Building character, right? So you have a good character or a bad character is one thing, but building character is a process that leaders can actually do, right? I have been mentoring number of high school and undergrad and master degree holder students, right, on entrepreneurship and variety of different things. And one of the core component is strengthen and build your character better. Be the person, right? Always have a sort of walk of pride, right? You walk and the person crossing by, in his or her eyes, you have to see pride for yourself. If that happens, you are in a right direction. Lot of times, people don't have enough guidance, right? Not everybody is fortunate as us to have a great family who has given great values and who have shown a lot of things, and you've seen and witnessed greatness, right? Some people are not fortunate. So you could really help them and show the power of doing great and doing good, right? And that character building is actually a thing. We have done it. I have a firm belief that if I hire a person, I've interviewed that person, they've gone through the technical rounds, they've gone through HR rounds, and then they talk to me and my business partner. And if we hired that person, that means we made that commitment to ourselves, and we made commitment to that person that we are going to add value to their life. We are going to elevate their life professionally, personally, financially. Professionally and personally is where a lot of character building comes in. We do things that inspires them. We do things, we lead by example.
Yeah.
I don't pass on the orders, warming up my chair. I actually do the work.
Yeah.
Right? I go out of my way to do things for other people. I go and support people in the worst possible scenarios. I put them before me.
Right.
Right? I talk about my family. I cherish my family. I cherish my relationships, my friends. And a lot of those experiences you share, a lot of things you talk about, it actually is character building exercise.
Yeah.
Right? I even am a firm believer, contrary to other people, and know, it's a controversial topic, but I'll tell you that current generation is actually much better generation than my generation and the previous generation.
In what ways?
Because there is a lot of character building actually happening. You see social media and a lot of inspirational talks and a lot of life journeys that are easily available now. Before, you had to be good at reading books to know what Mahatma Gandhi did and what Martin Luther King did and what George Washington did, right? People like me who never read any books, like for us, we were away from that knowledge, right? Now, every little kid in the town, in the school, in the college, has abundance of resources to inspire them and say, you know what, hey, this is interesting. I've never thought about it. I can actually improve my life. I can actually do better for my parents. I can actually do better for my family. I can do these things for community. I can help others. Hey, this was very inspirational story that this person did something out very unconventionally, and that helped so many people, right? Even look at innovation and startups, right? Somebody to come up with Uber. Most people talk about Uber and profitability and it's working and Uber versus Lyft versus. In my view, this man has changed the world. Think of how many jobless people now can put food at the table. How many retired people can have a complementary substitute income. How many people who could not do a normal jobs can do at least driving car, makes money. Like millions of people's life is changed right? Now, to me, if I am a young kid, 11, 12, 15-year old, and I'm looking at this Uber story and I'm like, wow, this guy must have thought something amazing that has changed the world.
Yeah.
To me, that's a character building exercise, right? So you can hire people, you can elevate them personally, mentally, professionally, and you can really drive where their life trajectory can be, right? Yes, end of the day, it's their own life. End of the day, they have to work for it. They have to, stick to those principles, right? But we as leaders have a responsibility to actually help build characters for the people that work for us. And I am very fortunate, and I don't wait for somebody to thank me for it. I actually see people doing amazing, and I'm one of those happiest souls. And I'm like, you know what? This kid was like this with so many conversations and work that he has done with me. Look at him, how nice and amazing he is, right? So that's basically true in all cases. Now, bad people are bad people. There's always going to be those that exist, and and I feel they should exist, because what not to do is equally important as what to do.
What to do.
Right. So yeah, that's my take. So every one of us should do it. If we know something good, tell the world.
Yeah.
If they take it, if one person takes it, your life is worthwhile.
I like the whole nature versus nurture, but there's also a nature meets nurture.
Yes.
Which I think is what's being cultivated at your firm. And I promised to ask you one of these questions because I wanted to get to a couple of topics before the end of the episode. And one of the things is, and this again takes you back in time. I wanted to understand how your first customer came about. And the reason I asked that is because, again, we have people who are thinking of building services businesses and selling to the US market. And cracking that enterprise market is not easy for a lot of people. And for you, the fact that you're not just were able to like crack the first few set of customers, but also were able to like compound that to a point where the business is today at an unbelievable run rate. How do you first land that in the US without, like you said, not really like knowing a lot about the space? You put together a lot of your experience and journey by having that I will figure this out attitude, which obviously has brought you a lot of success.
Yeah.
But it's less to do with just having that attitude, but more science as well, combined with a little bit of art and landing the first set of customers, then growing and nurturing those relationships to land you the second, third groups and sets of customers in different segments. And we talked about it. You're also operating in spaces that are very, I wouldn't say niche, but very, very specific in the sense that you work in cybersecurity, you work in industrials, you work in oil and gas, you work in sectors that you typically see a lot of relationship driven or businesses that are largely driven by relationships, and that's how you land these conversations which turn into becoming customers. So how did that play out for you, and how much of your background, given that the family was in some way in the industrial space, kind of like help you to understand the nature of American businesses? Of course, different geographies, but was there any correlation? And trying to bring a lot of questions into like one.
Yeah. So I'll answer it differently. So business is business, right? You sell an apartment building, or you sell Starbucks coffee, or you sell IT. End of the day, there's a buyer and a seller. There's a supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
One of the classic things that one of my leaders told me the other day, right? He's like, do something that you become the definition of that one thing. For example, if you talk about coffee, then it's Starbucks or Dunkin' Donut, right? So that's an example. So one of the first things is like understanding really the business that you are doing and what you are after, right? Second is doing unthinkable things is the best way to break open the door, right?
What is an example?
So an example is that when most businesses, right, they start looking at a problem and start figuring out why it cannot be solved or why it cannot be done. As a founder with a lava boiling in your stomach, not just the fire, you only focus on how you could make it happen. There's always a difference between the ones who said how it cannot happen and ones who say how it can happen. So that is one of the most critical thinking for any founder or any leader trying to open the enterprise business, focus business. Very, very, very difficult. If I had done SMB business, probably I would have had 5,000 customers by now with the same amount of effort we put in instead of 140 Fortune 1000 customers we have. People have to see something different in you that they don't see in the conventional players. For me, it was very simple. The brand that I built for myself while I was in my master's degree is, this guy can do anything. Right. And he will not take no for an answer and he will not fail. That was just the basic premise of the character, right? The second part was trying to understand what are the most difficult problems out there. So I didn't have really a business thesis to say, I'm going to do networking or security or data centers or cloud or AI or anything. My whole goal was I want to do IT business, right? In that, the biggest problem was that network and cybersecurity was most underserved space at that time. Like Cisco was the biggest and the newest game in the town and others were doing average, right? So we said, look, we can do solutions and services 3 times faster, 4 times cheaper, and 10 times better, right? Just the random numbers. And we went with that attitude. We sold it to like 100 people. I would talk to anybody and everybody and like, hey, I can do anything under the sun when it comes to networking. I've got, this expertise, that expertise. I have people that I can bring in and give me one opportunity, right? No cost, no money, no SOW. I even didn't know the term SOW, MSA or anything. And somebody was a taker of it. Somebody said, you know what? This kid sounds pretty aggressive. He talks sense and knows thing or two. Let's give it a shot. And that one shot was the shot of my life that I'm like, hey, no matter world comes to an end, I'm not failing on this. So put everything I had in solving that problem, solve that problem in the blink of an eye, really, like literally something that they may have anticipated a month's worth of exercise. We did it in a day and a half. And that started one thing. Now I had brag rights. I had a customer who trusts me and is willing to support me. And again, I told you that humility and being very real. So I asked that customer, I'm like, look, now that I've done this for you and you like what I'm doing, I have to build a massive enterprise and an empire. I need your support.
Yeah.
Help me in any way you can. Tell me what I can do for you, but help me. And people like it. Actually, people see that very really. It's like, hey, if somebody is so good at what they're doing and if they're asking for help with a very clear goal, what they want to achieve, everybody will help you. Now, I did what I did as a pretty basic, average, ignorant human being who just wanted to do business. 15 years later, when all these videos on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram that are there, the story emerges that how did Steve Jobs got his support from HP, right?
Right.
He picked up a phone and he wanted to talk to a CEO and he explained, hey, why do I need your help? I need your help with a specific intent, specific purpose, and here's the outcome I'm trying to drive. I would really appreciate your help. And that's what made that CEO to drive his car to this guy's home and lend a bunch of motherboards and chips and whatever resources he needed.
Yeah.
The principles of business hasn't changed. This was a story 30 years back.
Yeah.
My story is 20 years old. and somebody else's story is 10 years old, and somebody's story will be from 5 years from now.
Yeah.
End of the day, very simple thing. Your intent has to be very clear. You have to have fire in the belly to do the right and do the best thing.
Yeah.
And you have to be very real. No BS, no shenanigans, no fake stories. Very real, right? And execute.
Yeah.
When you execute and when you ask for help with a very clear intent and outcomes, the whole world will come to help you. Today, we repeated that story, by the way, right? So we had 20, 25 customers in 2019. Today we stand with 140 customers. You would have never, ever, ever received one cold call, one cold email, or a booth at any event or an expo for Intuitive.
Now.
Every single customer is out there telling their peer like, hey, oh, you have this problem? Let me connect you with the founder of Intuitive.Cloud.
Yeah.
Right? 100% of the time.
It's all trust-driven, referral-driven.
Right?
Yeah.
And at that point, now this is a moat that is built, right? That you cannot sleep upon. Like you cannot, slack up. You cannot slow down. You cannot misstep.
Because you're known for that now.
Yeah, we made sure, and the whole company, everybody is aware of this. And I'll tell you, interestingly, doing what we have done, we have created literally 50 Js in the company. We have created 50 indies in the company. Because whatever we are doing, we are not holding this as a secret sauce and it's a top secret and Jay does something, some magic. Now we tell our team, this is exactly what we are doing, and that makes them much more fiduciarily responsible about how they carry Intuitive brand and how they represent Intuitive brand and how do they execute their work and how do they deliver on their commitments, right? And coming back to the character building, you're going to find 100 plus very powerful character people at Intuitive because of this process, because failure is not an option, right? And we don't fail on our commitment and we deliver exceptional results, and that results into organic growth that we are seeing.
I love that. I love the compounding that you talked about towards the end. I particularly admire the fact that you talked a lot about how you've built this internal culture that respects, understands what you've built all these years. But the thing that stands out to me the most is the fundamentals of business haven't changed. And I completely agree with you on that. And which is why even today, if you go back and take a look at how businesses were built in the 18th century, 19th century, yeah, sure, the nature of the business is different.
Yeah.
But the fundamentals of how the business were built are pretty much the same. Because at the end of the day, you're doing business with people.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
People like to do business with good people.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. As long as that thesis holds good, the fundamentals can be applied from 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever the past age period is, you can take that and apply it even today. Because I think that's the most fundamental important bit.
Like trust and authenticity. And the trust about what? Trust about what you are saying is what you're going to deliver. Trust about you are always going to make me successful. You're going to give 100% to make it happen.
Yeah.
Trust about never taking a shortcut.
Yeah.
Trust about, hey, you're not going to trade my life and reputation for your small benefit. Trust about that when I need something, this is one man I can call and he'll always come true.
Agreed.
Right? Trust about the fact that this is a genuine human being.
Yeah.
He's not only saying good things to me to please me, but he's actually exercising it every single waking moment.
Yeah.
So if you build that trust with the person you're doing business with, you are truly real and authentic.
I agree.
Right? The world will come around and want to give you, deal with you. End of the day, it's that, like you experience it, right? You just come across a bad person and that will ruin your day.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
The people want to deal with good people. If you are real and authentic person, then business will happen.
Absolutely. You get a good vibe. You just get a vibe, not even a good vibe. You just get a vibe, and you know whether the vibe is a good vibe or a bad vibe. And that'll tell you a lot about whether you want to go into business with this person or not.
Yep.
And more often than not, I mean, I worked for a Japanese firm for about 5 years. the one thing that you would constantly like, you know when you walk out of the room whether you're going to be doing business with this person or not. That it takes you like that 30 minutes or an hour. And that's, I don't know whether they've mastered the art of like recognizing people and pattern recognitions over years of doing business, or they read facial clues and just the way that, they're so particular about the little things that they take notice of. And that matters, because that level of attention of detail that they bring to the table is what they expect the other person to bring to the table. And at the end of the day, it's the value match that we talked about. You were talking about values and how that's important. You talked about character, but what essentially people are also looking to do is they're trying to find a part of themselves in you. If they can't see a part of you in them and vice versa, it's fundamentally not going to be enough for them to do business.
No, it's not going to work. Yeah, I've seen this. So somebody I met and I respect a lot, he still does the same thing. Like, I'm quite inspired by him, right? His simple thesis to me is like, listen, never, ever, ever negotiate on your integrity, right? If one time you do it, that's it. That's a game is over.
Yeah.
He said his simple thesis was that, look, if you are not in the room and the world talks amazing things about you, you've done something right. If you are not in the room and you become a reference, you've done something amazing in your life. If you are not in the room and people want to wish amazing things for you, like if you're not in a room and set of customers or leaders or your employees and like, you know what, one person who deserves to be super successful is Jay. If that one line that happens when I'm not present, right, to me, I have all of those people's positive vibes and blessings that's going to lift me up to make me that successful, right?
Yeah.
So that authenticity is needed. And in business, it always works that way. Like sometimes I used to wonder, I'm like, man, these companies are not even that great. How are they successful? Why are they making revenue? And the answer was very simple. Fundamentally, the founders and the leaders of that company did one thing really good: establish the trust and integrity that would not get jeopardized, and people like to do business with them. I had to create my space for it, right? Now we have that space. It's hard to undo it, right? So I would tell every single person, never, ever, ever build a business that's fly by night and get by and like, oh, it will just pass the muster and hopefully this person. You get to a point in business where you actually know that you're going to win this deal or you're not going to win this deal.
Yeah.
I get that today. Like when we submit a proposal, I'll tell my team, I don't think we're getting this business. You know why? Because we haven't earned the trust of the decision maker yet. Right? Now, the Six Sigma moment can happen that nobody has earned the trust and everybody else's proposal is really bad and we win. But 99% of the time, for us to win the business, that trust has to be established. The person has to look into your eyes and say, you know what? I believe this person, whatever he's saying, he's going to get it delivered.
Yeah.
Right? So that is important. I mean, that's what every founder should really focus on.
I agree. I couldn't, disagree with one single thing that you mentioned there. I completely feel that trust fundamentally is the bedrock of any business. And that's why people get into business with other businesses, to know that at the end of the day, they're making progress with the right set of people. And, having said that, towards the last segment of every episode, I love to have the guests reflect on their journey, but more of a personal journey, right? Like you've been doing business for a while now, a couple of decades. You've probably learned a lot about yourself. So if you were to just reflect back on your own journey and you were to like give yourself, actually, let's split this into two bits. What have you learned about yourself as a leader, as a chief executive of a company, and more importantly, just a human being? Like, how has the business impacted you as a person, and how has the business impacted you as a leader?
So I'll start with, I have, number one, I don't generally look at things in a way of saying highs and lows, right? I look at things very linearly. Things that I should have done differently and things I'm going to do differently. It's one of the two. It's like you listen, learn, evolve, and repeat. That's basically the journey of life, right? If I could have done one thing better, is to give people enough chance, opportunity, and time to deliver excellence. One of the inherent nature that I had, and again, a lot of this is byproduct of some of the great things that you have, right? Is that patience. My biggest problem was I am one of the naturally impatient people. I like to execute at a speed. I like to give 100% I have, and I expect timely results. You can't expect everybody is going to be like you because their goals and their mission of their lives are different. I kind of had a very linear, lens to it or singular lens to it, and say everybody has to be at their best and have to be delivering the results and the outcomes. Then realize that everybody has their role to play at different times. If they're part of your journey, accept it, create the acceptance, and let their role play out. Give them a space and time to deliver what they are set out to do, right? Don't force your thought process and the speed and the time on them. Because when you like debts, right? If you give somebody a time boxing pressure or you put them under immense debt, they are going to make poor decision and they are going to deliver suboptimal results. So that is one thing that I've learned as a leader that I had to change, and I've done much better in that regard. Second part, while I build a lot of great relationships and I've been very fearless in approaching anybody asking for help, advice, and guidance, I feel like some of the fundamental aspects of a business in America are having the right corporate structure, so right attorney who can help you with the right structure of your company, right financial experts to give you how do you manage things and stuff, right? And in terms of finance, and how do you manage your business finances, right legal person to give you guidance at the right places. And the practitioners or the people who have been operators and people who have done something successfully, you have to bring them as your advisor, right? To help you. Basically, you don't need to reinvent a wheel every single time that you do something, right? Those can be accelerated. So that is the second part. Third part is along the way in focusing on my mission, I may have probably not given 100% of my time to my family, right? Today, when we look back, everybody says that, it didn't matter because they all were part of this mission and they knew it and, they agreed. But I wish that at some point I had learned to turn on and off the switch to say, hey, I worked 18 hours a day. Let me take 6 hours and give 100% of that 6 hours to my family. That is one thing that I would say I could do better, right? On the other side of the spectrum, I feel that I've made good enough impact on many people's life. So that is one of the satisfactions. I have seen a lot of not so good founders and the leaders who may be more successful than me, by the way. I've seen lots and lots of people, how they treat people, how they think of other people, how they create differentiation between them and the others. For you to be looked at special or accomplished, their theory is to push people down so that they look amazing and better. I've never bought into that thesis or theory. My theory is like every single person in my company, every single person in my family, if I'm wearing this jacket, everybody should be able to wear that jacket. If I'm wearing this watch, they should be wearing. If I'm wearing the shoes, they should be. If I'm wearing a fancy bag, they should be. right? Every single trip that I make,
Community wins.
yeah, and I go to airport, I buy lots and lots of gifts. It's for my team,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't elevate people with you and make them feel that they are just another better version of you, because they are them, plus they have a lot of things that they learn from you. I think I've done that well. That one piece that I'm really proud of, and without my efforts, it has actually sort of traverse into my family and my kids' life as well. My kids they don't live under the rock of or the presumptuousness world to say, oh, we are kids of very successful father.
Yeah.
They don't actually care about any of that. They live very simple, basic life. They are into making everybody around them equal as them. They also focus on elevating other people with them.
That's great.
So that I would say a great accomplishment, if any.
Yeah.
Right. My goal is to make every one of my leaders and my team, the people who have given prime of their life to building Intuitive, I want to make sure that they all are financially independent very soon. That is my overarching goal. But if not anything, each one of them have gone through character building and their personal, professional, and financial growth to a point where they could lead amazing life ahead for themselves. So I would say that's what I go to bed with smile on my face with. That to me. But yes, there's much more that I still have to do, and I'll get to it one day soon.
Well, I love that, Jay. This has been a riveting conversation. We've talked about your journey, the philosophies, the learnings that you've had, both as a leader as well as a person, the kind of impact that you want to have on the world, as well as the people who've taken this big leap of faith and joined you in your mission. And I think when this episode comes out, we'll all look back and say that, hey, you made us think.
Yeah.
You made us revisit our own purpose. You've definitely given us something to think about in terms of how we want to lead our lives, how we want to run our businesses, how do we want to be better people. And at least as I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting back on the last hour or so that you've been here, you've made me think about these things for myself. So thank you so much for all of these insights and candid stories that you've been able to share from your life. And hopefully, you and I will get more time to sit, not just in this context, but also in other contexts where I can learn from you and just try and be a better leader myself, because I think I'm sitting across somebody who's turned out to be a fantastic leader and is definitely inspiring not just people at the company, but also every time you speak to, I think at least I've had this wonderful interaction with you where I felt, I think I can be so much better because I have role models and people to look up to who've done something in their lives. And I think that's a great playbook to look out for, especially. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure hosting you.
Pleasure. Thank you.